Every assessment item on STAR is aligned to the text. All questions on STAR will be assessed at the rigor level and will address the content of the standards. Let's talk about assessment now. Something we need to be aware of is that when an assessment item is coded to a particular SC, it will not always align to the standard in its entirety. Earlier in this video, we talked about the cognitive and content components of a student expectation. So when studying an assessment item, we should look for the alignment to that content and to the verbs. One way to deconstruct SCs and analyze alignment is to diagram the standard. Let's use 3.10a as an example. 3.10a says, locate and name points on a number line using whole numbers and fractions, including halves and fourths. The first step in diagramming an SC is to pull out the verbs. In 3.10a, we have two verbs, locate and name. Is there a difference between locating something and naming something? Would we consider these verbs to be high or low level? Press pause and think about it. Talk to your neighbor. So what do we think? Is there a difference? Answer this. How many of you all say can locate an electronic device in the room that does not belong to you? If that was the question on STAR 2015, how would we have done? Probably pretty darn good. Now, how many of you all can name the electronic device, make and model? What if that had been the question on STAR 2016? Which question measuring the same standard do you feel we would have performed better on? 2015 that asked to locate, or 2016 that asked to name? Which one is more difficult to do? Kids are going to have to be able to do both. The next step of diagramming a standard is to pull out the content. In 3.10a, kids are being asked to locate and name whole numbers and fractions. Students may have to locate whole numbers, locate fractions, name whole numbers, and name fractions. At this point, TEA has 4 different ways that 3.10a can be tested. So what is left to diagram? If the standard includes specificity, we're going to have to pull that out as well. Halves and fourths are the content specificity of 3.10a. Breaking down the SC into its content and cognitive components allows us to see how many different ways this SC could be tested, it could be taught. And it leads us to question for instructional planning, what would each of those components need to look like in instruction? How might they look in assessment? There are 6 different ways that 3.10a could potentially be tested, so during instruction, students should have experiences locating whole numbers, locating fractions to halves, locating fractions to fourths, naming whole numbers, naming fractions to halves, and naming fractions to fourths. Using the released test questions also allows the opportunity to figure out which component of the SC was assessed on STAR. On STAR 2013, say for example, there were 5 items coded to 3.10a. And let's say questions 5 and 18 required students to locate fractions to the halves. Questions 6, 21, and 54 required students to locate whole numbers. So let's say that overall student performance on 3.10a was at 82%. Would you feel comfortable saying that your 3rd graders understood 3.10a? Okay, now what if I drill down a little further? On items 6, 21, and 54, students were at 92%. Pretty good, right? However, on questions 5 and 18, students were at 68%. What does this tell us? How would this information help when planning for instruction and intervention? You can see that there are pieces of 3.10a that students are strong in and others that they struggle with, but most important to notice is that even with data based on 5 items, we don't have the full schematic on the entire standard because we don't have tested data on all of the parts.